The void of space is vast, indifferent and silent, until the crimson silhouette of the Aurora's wrath tore through it like a blade. Beneath its sleek hull, thrusters burned with cold blue fire, and navigational arrays hummed with calculated precision. Inside the bridge, a constellation of violet-eyed Valkyra stood at attention, their polished armor reflecting the distant glimmer of stars. At the forefront, Commander Thalia Valarax surveyed the sensor's readings with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. She was the epitome of Valkyra grace. Nearly 2 meters tall, with onyx-black hair braided into ornate coils and skin that shimmered faintly under the ship's illumination. Around her neck hung the sigil of Dominion, a relic said to bear the essence of 1,000 conquered worlds. "Status report," she commanded, her voice cool and commanding. Lieutenant Yara Talon, her second in command, glanced up from a holo display. Planet identified as designated target, Sol 3, colloquially, Earth. Sensor logs indicate a Class M atmosphere, diverse biosphere, and, according to archives, a civilization in the early industrial epoch. Sarah Nightwind, weapons officer and ardent skeptic of underpowered foes, snorted. "Early industrial? Compared to our war-forged ironclads, those steam chariots are toys, and their rifles, more spectacle than threat." Across the bridge, astrophysicist and cultural liaison Draina Stellara tapped her data slate thoughtfully. "They do possess achievements worth noting. Orbital satellites, complex neural networks, even fusion reactors." Thalia cut her off with a dismissive wave. "Trinkets. They rival nothing in the expanse. Prepare landing coordinates." Shudder ran through the ship as it shifted course. The Valkyra sisters straightened, armor plates whispering against one another. Below them, the azure marble of Earth swelled larger, cloud bands swirling over oceans and continents. Moments later, the Aurora's wrath emerged from warp above the Nevada desert, its shadow momentarily blotting out the sun. A hush fell over the bridge. For a heartbeat, the Valkyra absorbed the vista, a network of rugged highways, specks of settlements, and the endless stretch of arid wilderness. "Release the descent pods," Thalia ordered. Below, a fleet of sleek, manta-shaped craft detached and dove toward the surface, trailing plumes of white gas. They pierced the atmosphere effortlessly, their heat shields glowing orange, until gravity claimed them and they slowed to graceful landings. The largest pod touched down on the cracked earth of the Black Rock Desert, raising a plume of dust. Thalia strode forward as her sisters disembarked, each step sending faint vibrations through the ground. Their boots, reinforced with graviton stabilizers, left perfect impressions. Rifles and energy glaives hung at their hips, but no Valkyra drew a weapon. There was no need. Their mere presence was weapon enough. Phase 1. Demonstration of power, the commander announced, voice amplified across the barren plains. "Let the natives witness our supremacy." With synchronized precision, Sarah advanced on a row of abandoned Humvees parked near a derelict outpost. She tapped a panel on her gauntlet, and a pulse beam lanced from her rifle, shearing a hulking vehicle in two. Metal buckled and groaned before collapsing in on itself like a wounded beast. Lieutenant Yara stamped the beaten chassis into the sand as if crushing an insect. "Iron relics," she jeered. "What use to us?" Unseen microphones captured the entire spectacle. At the edge of civilization, local radio towers crackled to life, relaying the broadcast across every frequency. Within minutes, news feeds around the globe splintered into chaos. "Alien warlords in desert. Planetary invasion? Are we doomed?" Back on the bridge, Draina tapped at her console, deciphering the panic. "They refer to us as Amazon warriors, Valkyrie, even. Let them call us what they will," Thalia interrupted, head tilting slightly as she listened to the terrified Earth voices. "Fear is admission of weakness, and they will fear." The Valkyra formed a ring around their commander, silent and resolute. Above them, the sky stretched unchallenged, save for the looming shadow of the Aurora's wrath. And in that moment, With sunlight flashing on sharpened blades and the desert wind carrying distant echoes of humanity's alarm, the Valkyra believed the conquest would be swift and absolute. Unseen by both sides, a lone figure stood on a jagged ridge some kilometers away. He watched the newcomers with wide-eyed fascination, thumb hooked in the belt of a battered backpack. His storm-drenched Humvee sat half-buried in sand, its engine still ticking from a recent foray. He raised a hand to shield his eyes, uncertain whether he was witnessing triumph or insanity. Commander Thalia felt her lip curl in contemptuous amusement. "Earth is conquered in spirit before a single drop of blood is shed," she proclaimed, turning toward the distant ridge. "Let us welcome them properly." Behind her, the Valkyra sisters raised their weapons, armor gleaming like hardened ruby. The air trembled with the promise of dominance, and with it, Earth's destiny hung perilously in the balance. The desert heat boomed like a drum under the midday sun as the Valkyra formed their cuirass of power amid the scattered wreckage of Earth's crumbling outpost. Crimson armor plates glinted in the light, each sister a living testament to Andromedan, engineering, and martial tradition. Their descent pods hissed spent thruster exhaust into the still air, and wind-whipped dust swirled around their boots. Commander Thalia Valarax raised a gauntleted hand, and a translucent holomap flickered to life above her palm. A dozen nearby settlements, military checkpoints, and even a small airstrip lay marked in icy white. "Divide into patrol units," she intoned. "Sweep the perimeter. Send back live footage of their leader's fear, so we may savor their panic." 3 squads peeled off in perfect formation. Lieutenant Sarah Nightwind led her trio north toward a cluster of cell towers. Draina Stellara headed east, eager to catalog what cultural artifacts she might rediscover as trophies. Yara Talon marched south with Thalia herself, toward a solitary highway where curious humans already gathered, gawking and whispering into handheld devices. Within minutes, drone scouts, sleek black skimmers equipped with microtransmitters, buzzed up into the sky, capturing every angle. Their feeds splintered across Earth's airwaves. News channels looped the Valkyra's arrival on prime time. Social media exploded with hashtags like Red Sisters, Planetfall, and Alien Warrior Women. Memes sprang to life overnight. One juxtaposed a Valkyra flexing her energy glaive next to a Chihuahua, captioned, "Same energy." Another photoshopped them sunbathing in bikinis under the headline, "Beach Day Invasion." Thalia watched the viral frenzy with a simmering contempt. They mock our victory with frivolous jests. They dare reduce us to carnival acts. She jabbed a finger at the holomap. Broadcast a demonstration that silences every laugh. Yara Talon grinned, her fanged teeth glinting. "With pleasure." A low hum rose as the Valkyra recalibrated their weapons. Energy glaives crackled to life, sending arcs of violet plasma lancing outward in dance-like elegance. Sarah's squad lined up behind a row of abandoned armored personnel carriers. With a single synchronized breath, they unleashed focused blasts that vaporized the steel hulks, leaving only molten craters in the sand. "Primitive constructs," Sarah intoned, voice echoing in the comm channel. "Witness real power." A stunned hush fell across Earth's live streams as the carriers collapsed. The crackling of plasma faded into silence briefly before news anchors sputtered, "Astounding display. Utter decimation." Cameras panned back to the sisters flexing and posing, as if they were the galaxy's most elite fitness instructors. Then from the brim of a crowd of onlookers, a lone voice crackled over every open mic, laced with bemusement. "Well, you ladies sure know how to make an entrance." The Valkyra turned as one toward the sound. There, standing atop a beaten dune, was Jackson Steele, the same unflappable human from last night's distant ridge. His weathered leather jacket billowed in the breeze, heavy-soled boots scuffed at the rock beneath him. In one hand he held a battered GoPro on a selfie stick, recording the entire tableau. In the other he sipped a steaming cup of coffee from a chipped ceramic mug. Thalia's violet eyes narrowed. "Human, your presence here was unintended. Step forward and identify yourself." Jackson tossed his head, nearly knocking the coffee out of the mug. Name's Jackson. Sci-fi nerd turned road trip junkie. You just blew up my favorite spare parts store. Thought I'd drop by, say hey. Sarah laughed, a sharp metallic trill. You mock us. You dare speak casually to Valkyra warriors? He stretched, cracked his knuckles, and offered her a nod. Judge me by my manners, not my species. Besides, if you wanted to impress me, you're doing a pretty terrible job. Yara's lips curled. You think yourself fearless, yet tremble before an empty latte. Jackson raised the mug in salute. This isn't just coffee. It's an earth elixir. Makes mortals poets, heroes, and apparently alien overlords see double. A ripple of confusion passed through the Valkyra. Were these warriors so unaccustomed to humor, to humility? A tremor of curiosity flickered in Thalia's gaze. Draina Stellara's voice chimed in over the comlink, hardly able to contain her. Glee. Commander, the humans on the feed are splicing your battle footage with stand-up routines. They call it Alien Comedy Hour. Thalia stood silent a moment as laughter, both human and digital, echoed around her. Then quietly, almost imperceptibly, she cracked the faintest of smiles. She lifted a hand and gestured to her sisters. Hold your fire, she ordered. Sarah's glaive hissed to darkness. Yara let her grin soften. Draina tapped her console to cut the transmission. The Valkyra fell still as cosmic legends that had toppled star empires. Jackson strolled closer, cupping both hands around, his mouth. So, any chance you'd like to hear an Earth joke? Thalia's armor plates shifted as she took a cautious step forward. When she spoke, her tone was different, less sharp, more tentative. Proceed, Earthling. He winked. What do you call a warrior who's lost in the desert? She inclined her head. Explain. Sandwiched. For a moment, the desert held its breath. Then, across the cratered sands, an unexpected sound rippled through the ranks of the Valkyra. Laughter. Not the low, mournful moan of a wounded beast, but bright, ringing laughter, free and unguarded. And in that laughter lay the seed of something no conqueror had ever tasted. Genuine human spirit. Dust motes danced in the late afternoon sun as Jackson Steele strode forward, each step kicking small pebbles across the cracked desert floor. His battered Humvee, half buried in a nearby dune, sputtered like a wounded beast in the distance. In one hand, he still clutched the chipped ceramic mug. In the other, a rugged backpack bulged with primitive human curiosities, maps, snacks, and an assortment of hand tools. Commander Thalia Valarax observed him through narrowed eyes, her polished boots rooted in defiance. Beside her, Lieutenant Sarah Nightwind tapped her energy glaive impatiently against a rust-red rock. He flaunts our weakness with every breath, Sarah hissed. Jackson grinned, lifting the mug in salute. If you're going to conquer us, you'll need to know what makes us tick. Coffee's the start, but there's more. He reached into his backpack and withdrew a battered deck of playing cards. Ever played poker? A ripple of confusion passed through the Valkyra ranks. Draina Stellara exchanged a flurried glance with Yara Talon, cataloging Jackson's bright red soda can and handheld radio transmitter. Commander, Draina whispered, these items appear completely harmless. Thalia's lip curled. Harmless, until they're not. She studied Jackson, calculating. Then with an abrupt nod, she spoke across the comm channel. Very well, Earthling, teach us your games, show us why we should not simply end this farce. Jackson's eyes lit up. Gladly. From his pack, he produced 3 metal cups and a handful of smooth stones. First, he said, placing an inverted cup on the sand, we learn trust. You hide a stone beneath one cup, I shuffle them blindfolded, and you find it. It's called shell game. Sarah stepped forward, lifting her visor's lens. Simple chance. She hid the stone under the leftmost cup. Jackson tied a bandana over his eyes and swirled the cups with deft fingers. With a final tap, he halted. Which one? He asked. Sarah hesitated, her warrior's pride bristling at the notion of trusting primitive luck. Then she chose. The cup tumbled under her gauntleted palm, and the stone lay beneath. A sudden spark flickered in her violet eyes. Something between shock and grudging admiration. Beginner's luck? Jackson shrugged, removing the blindfold. He passed the stone and cups to Yara Talon. Next round's on you. As the afternoon waned, the Valkyra sisters traded blows of wit and strategy, 3-card Monty, simple dice throws, even a rudimentary quiz of Earth trivia. With each round, their armor felt heavier with uncertainty. What was once mockery had transformed into curiosity. Laughter, first stifled, then genuine, broke through the stoic ranks of the Crimson Warriors. At last, Thalia stood, brushing sand from her pauldrons. Enough games, she declared. You have entertained us, Jackson Steele. But tell me true, what is your aim? Jackson leaned on his backpack, sunlight glinting off the GoPro perched atop his head. Same as yours, I guess, to find something worth fighting for. He offered her a card from the deck, the Ace of Spades. I propose a contest, strength of spirit over strength of arms. If you win, I'll bow to your conquest. If I win, you leave Earth and take a few new friends as ambassadors. Silence stretched across the desert. The Valkyra exchanged loaded looks, the twilight sky reflecting in their helmets. Thalia lifted the card, weighing its promise. At last she snapped it between two fingers. So be it, she said, voice soft but unwavering. Let the contest begin. And as the violet dusk settled, two worlds braced for a challenge that would decide not only victory, but the fate of an entire planet. The desert sky darkened to bruised purple as Jackson Steele swept aside his backpack and laid out a makeshift arena on the hard-packed sand. 3 stations, each marked by a ring of smoothed stones, awaited their trials. A low, reinforced table for arm wrestling, a standing circle for rock, paper, scissors, and a chalked grid for the ultimate test, tic-tac-toe. Around them, the Valkyra formed a silent semicircle, rifles and glaives holstered, curiosity warring with pride. Arm wrestling. Sarah Nightwind stepped up first, her armored gauntlet gleaming under the desert lamps. I will crush you, she declared, seating Jackson at the table's opposite end. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing sinewy forearms dusted with sand. At the signal, their hands met. Sarah's strength surged, gravity stabilizers humming beneath her armor. But Jackson braced himself, digging his heels into the sand. Muscle versus resolve, steel versus flesh. Inch by inch, Jackson forced Sarah's hand down, sweat gleaming on his brow. When he slammed her palm to the table, a ripple of astonishment swept through the Valkyra. A human had bested their champion in pure might. Rock, paper, scissors. Next, Thalia Valarax and Jackson faced off under a single arc-light drone. A game of instinct, Jackson explained. Thalia's armored fingers flickered in the classic gestures, rock, paper, scissors. But Jackson matched her lightning fast, countering each throw with uncanny foresight. 3 rounds. Jackson's hand outstretched as paper to Thalia's rock. Rock against scissors, and scissors to her paper. With every victory, Thalia's contempt softened into fascination. Was this mere luck, or a human mind sharpened by unpredictability? Tic-tac-toe. For the final duel, Jackson knelt and etched a 9-square grid in the sand. He placed a smooth pebble at center for his first X. Thalia, her visor raised, dropped her own token at a corner. They took turns, Jackson's X, then Thalia's O, each move deliberate, strategic. Never before had the Valkyra bowed to so trivial a scheme, yet every placement pulsed with significance. To Thalia, it was a war-map. To Jackson, a blank canvas for cunning. After a tense standoff, Jackson forced Thalia into a corner of her own making, sealing a diagonal line of X's. He tapped the final pebble gently, a checkmate born of patience, not power. Silence reigned as the last ember of victory glowed in Jackson's eyes. The Valkyra sisters stood motionless, their ancient code of conquest shaken by the simplest of earthly diversions. At length, Thalia Valarax exhaled, her armored chest rising and falling like the breath of a sleeping giant. "Earthling," she said, voice low but clear, "you have bested us in these trifles, and revealed the strength hidden in our own hearts." Sarah lowered her glaive, lip quirking in the first genuine smile Jackson had seen on a Valkyra warrior. "We concede this contest," she acknowledged, voice softer than the desert breeze. As the alien warriors gathered around Jackson, peering at the sand-drawn grid, something unexpected blossomed: respect. Under the violet dome of stars, two worlds bridged the gulf between steel and spirit, and the Valkyra found themselves changed forever by the humble might of humanity's wit. Night's cool fingers swept across the desert as the Valkyra gathered around the remnants of their playful arena. Campfires, ignited by Jackson's portable lanterns, glowed like scattered fireflies among the crimson-armored warriors. Above, the stars wheeled in silent witness to an unexpected truce. Commander Thalia Valorax knelt beside Jackson's chalk-etched tic-tac-toe grid. She traced the diagonal line of pebbles with a slender finger, then looked up at him, her violet eyes unguarded for the first time. "You have shown us Earth's true might," she admitted softly, voice carrying in the crisp night air. "Not weapons, not war, but laughter, courage, and camaraderie." Jackson poured hot coffee from the chipped thermos into small metal cups and handed one to each Valkyra. Hesitant at first, they cradled the mugs, inhaling the bitter aroma. When they sipped, their expressions softened. Some grimaced at the sting of caffeine, while others offered Jackson respectful nods of gratitude. Around the campfires, Stellara unveiled her holopad, projecting images of Earth's greatest wonders: mountain ranges that scraped the sky, oceans teeming with life, cities ablaze with art and invention. Yara Talon listened raptly to Jackson's stories of human resilience, how tiny bands of mortals had stood firm against impossible odds, rewriting history in the process. Sarah Nightwind, boots buried in sand, tapped her glaive gently. "We sought only conquest," she murmured. "But instead we have found something richer, friendship forged in challenge." She cast a sidelong glance at Jackson. "We will honor our bargain." As dawn's first blush crept over the horizon, the aurora's wrath rumbled softly overhead, returning to orbit. Thalia stood, silhouette framed by the pale light. She raised a clenched fist in salute. "Earth is free from our blades," she proclaimed, "but we shall not depart empty-handed. We take with us ambassadors of your world, Jackson Steele, and these, my sisters." Jackson stepped forward, standing tall despite the desert chill. "Then let this be our pledge: the Valkyra and Earth, bound not by conquest, but by shared stories, mutual respect, and cups of strong coffee." He raised his mug high. The Valkyra mirrored him, voices joined in a single toast. Behind them, the desert bloomed with possibility. Scout drones released shimmering petals of luminescent spores, an Andromedan gesture of goodwill, settling softly on the sands. The Valkyra gently gathered the glowing petals, planting them beside Jackson's Humvee, where they took root and sprouted phosphorescent blossoms. In that moment, two worlds pivoted on a delicate axis of humor and honor. The Valkyra would return home not as conquerors, but as chroniclers of Earth's indomitable spirit. And Jackson Steele, once a lone wanderer, became the bridge between star-faring empires and the terrestrial cradle of humanity. As the sun rose, painting the dunes gold, laughter echoed across the desert, proof that even the coldest scorn can thaw in the warmth of unexpected friendship. And so the legend was born, of how alien warrior women mocked Earth until they saw the strength of an earthly man and found their own hearts transformed in the process.